First, they came for the socialists. But I was not a socialist, so I did not speak up. Then they came for the trade unionists. But I was not a trade unionist, so I did not speak up. Then they came for the Jews. But I was not a Jew, so I did not speak up. Finally, they came to me, but there was nobody to speak for me. Those words were spoken by a pastor. His name was Martin Niemöller. He was a German priest, and he was speaking about the cowardice of German intellectuals after the rise of Nazism in Germany during the Second World War. And it's an interesting thing because I want to ask a quick question here. Who here feels that they live in a free society, relatively free society? I do, for one. Does anybody else feel that they live in a fairly free society? Yeah, we all do. In fact, there's probably never been a time in history that we've had more freedoms than we have right now. However, I like to use the analogy of weeds in a garden. We think we have it pretty good. And it's a longer term look at things, of course. But if you look at a garden, you have it all weeded, it looks beautiful. You could say, oh, we've arrived. We have the utopia of garden cleanliness. There's nothing else we need to do. And we leave it. We come back, what happens? It's all full of weeds again, and we have to rebuild again. Fellow toastmasters, I'm here to share my idea that I think weeds are starting to grow again. And they always are. The roots are there for tyranny. There was a man by the name of Frederick Bastiat who after the French Revolution, he saw what went on before and he saw what went on after the revolution. And he wrote a book called Law. And in there he described about what law is supposed to be about. He describes law as supposed to be about protecting the citizens or protecting the people. But what he said was that when corruption creeps in, law becomes perverted. And what happens is something he calls legal plunder begins. Legal plunder. Now, if you were to ask any honest lawyer, I have a grin on my face, but I have known a few. My brother happened to be a lawyer, and I consider him to be an honest man. I've got a friend who's a lawyer. He seems to be an honest guy. And both of them agreed that the foundation of a law system is an injured party. An injured party. Yet, how many times have we heard of people who've been thrown in the cage for not actually injuring anybody? Many people are in cages, otherwise known as jails, for possessing a plant which most people who would believe in the supernatural would say that God created. They haven't injured anybody. This is what Bastiat was talking about. He would say things along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that if you take the injured party out of a law system, you have tyranny. And it is actually the origins of how war is conducted. We've all heard of something called war reparations. And this was a scenario where I go to war with Don. Don beats the pulp out of me, but then I have to pay Don for the services of having pacified me in a war reparation, plus a commission for his good services. This is how wars were conducted for the longest time. It is said that that's why the Japanese attacked the Americans during the Second World War, because they would not back them up for their war reparations that the Americans said they would when they went to war with Russia. Japan spent millions and millions of yens, beat the Russians, and they counted on the Americans for the Russians to pay them for their services of having beaten them. The Americans wouldn't. So the Japanese had a vengeance and they attacked the Americans during the Second World War. It's a very interesting thing. Now, what I'm talking about here in terms of weeds in our garden in reference to especially what Martin Niemöller had said, is that if we see weeds happening in our community, where people are being trodden upon, even though they haven't harmed anybody, it behooves us to speak up. Otherwise, we are in some way accomplices to that, if we are aware of it. For example, I know of numerous people, some better than others, who are currently incarcerated, what I like to call in cages, not because they've harmed anybody, but because they violated something that they never agreed to. They haven't injured anybody. Therefore, according to the foundation of a legitimate law system, they're not criminals. In fact, they are injured parties because now they are confined. So if you turn it around and you look at it, the criminals are those who are incarcerating them. That's a hard thing for some people to swallow, but these are weeds in our garden. Now, one might ask, what does this have to do with us stepping out of our danger zone? What is our danger zone? Well, I would say our danger zone is to ignore the presence and the potential of weeds in our gardens. Because if we don't, as sure as the sun will go down tonight, there will come a time, inevitably, that there will be nobody to speak for us.